just in case I burp like a trucker, this is sparkling water. Hi, I'm Allison Toepperwein. Excuse me, Allison Toepperwein Uri.
That's right.
The Uri to my Toepperwein is my husband Stephen right there. He may give, in a minute. I'm the mother of Emma Kimbrough, who is over one from him, and stepmom to both Kendall and Mason Uri, who are also here. It's actually because of Mason and Emma that we are here and have joined this church. We were members at Hopewell. But our kids have been active members here for the past 2 years. They've gone to camp and every Wednesday night, and eventually they wore us down and we joined in August. We could not be happier. I'm from Texas, if you didn't know. I'll go ahead and repeat that. I am from Texas. Yeah. And while Pastor Jonathan, he hails from a Super Bowl winning team, just not this year. Texas sports teams have won 20 championships in the NFL, NBA, MLB, NHL, WNBA, and then there is college. And as the saying goes, everything is bigger and better in Texas, even our mouths.
Yeah. Amen.
So I'm going to try and speed up. It's hard to get me to shut up. That actually takes the will of God. But I'm trying to implement that watching what I say after reading Job. So within the last 5 months of 2014, I left my marriage. I sold my home. I moved into my dad's home with my daughter Emma, who was just 4.5 at the time. I got divorced. I was left without a car or a job. And if that weren't enough, on December 31st, 2014, I was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease. Now, Parkinson's is an incurable movement disorder. It's progressive, non-curable. And I was just 37 at the time, and I actually had had symptoms for about the length of my daughter's age, so about 4.5 at that time. My dad took me to the neurologist that day. He waited in the waiting room. Emma was preschool. She waited with him. And alone I was told, I'm sorry, I do believe you have Parkinson's disease. I can't imagine what that news did for my dad, but I remember the piercing feeling that it left in my gut. 2 months later, I was referred to the #1 neurologist in the world for Parkinson's and Minutes, Dr. Joseph Jankovic in Houston. The first thing out of his mouth was, start exercising. Exercise is the only thing proven to slow the progression. So I began going to my high school track and slowly started exercising. The stress of 2014 left me weighing in at about 96 pounds. I used to be 5'7", although apparently I am shrinking. I would slowly walk around that track, and then I began adding in bleachers, and it was through this that I found God was most definitely working in my story. Just a year after I was diagnosed, I sent in a video auditioning for a competitive TV show on NBC called American Ninja Warrior. Now, normally I would show off that clip, but Pastor Jonathan said, I can't do that because it's copywritten. But I recently heard Pastor David Jeremiah say, God didn't save us to become sensations. He saved us to become servants. Now, I don't know about you, but when I was a kid, I wanted to be president of the United States, like Ronald Reagan. And then, like him, I wanted to be an actor. I looked into modeling, and then I wanted to go into broadcasting, which I did for 7 years. I was on the nightly news in Kansas and then in Austin, Texas. But that wasn't enough. Since I could remember, all that I'd ever wanted or dreamed of was to be a sensation. It wasn't enough to be on American Ninja Warrior. It wasn't enough appearing on another national TV show for the Oprah Winfrey Network called Super Saver Showdown. It wasn't enough to be a newscaster. It wasn't enough being on local TV on a show called Hot on Homes. It wasn't enough getting tweeted by The Rock on a comment that I made on social media. None of this was ever enough. I was never enough. In the last few months, I've really been wrestling with some tough questions. What is the point of all of this? What is my purpose? And you see, I've had Jesus in my heart ever since I could remember. Yet I was always under this misconception that I must be a sensation in order to earn my salvation. I can tell you right now, when you are relying on yourself, you never will ever add up to enough. I was in the shower where I do my best thinking. Any of you out there do your best thinking in the shower? I can guarantee moms, because that's the only place you'll ever get peace and quiet, but not even when you have toddlers. Here I am scrubbing the shampoo in, and as I'm scrubbing, I'm wrestling with God, kind of like Jacob in the tent. And I moved out of the shower and I started drying my hair, and I'm throwing out questions. Well, what about this? And very loudly he responds, "My grace is sufficient for you." And I throw another question at him. But what about my grace is sufficient for you? It wasn't probably the fifth time. I am hard-headed. I finally put the hairdryer down and decided to look up that verse and see what God was telling me that was more important than me drying my hair. 2 Corinthians 12:9. This is Paul talking, and he says, "But he," meaning Jesus, "but he said to me, 'My grace is sufficient for you.'" But this isn't where the verse ends. It continues. Christ is saying, "My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness." Now Paul continues, "Therefore I will boast all the more gladly about my weaknesses, so that Christ's power may rest upon me." When I read this verse, it silenced my thoughts. All of this noise swirling around in my head, it all stopped. This verse is everything. As a woman, as a mother, I did not grow up with healthy boundaries. And I'm sure you're all going, "Yeah, we can tell that." But I feel like I must do it for everyone. I feel like I must do everything for everyone. You know, everyone in my family. I'm a people pleaser. How can I help? But none of that ever fulfills me. It never leaves me feeling like I am enough. I fall short from my husband. I certainly fall short with my kids. And I'm a mess of a woman that never seems to get it together. I'm sure you all know we're the late ones. But this past week, for me, was difficult. In fact, to say I had a great deal of stress upon me was an understatement. Stephen and I were in Texas, where we stay with my dad when we're there, and I work remotely living here in North Carolina for an institution out of Houston. So when I go home, I check in with work. The commute from my dad's house into Houston to my job, one way, is usually 2 to 2.5 hours on an average traffic day. I woke up Tuesday and the Bible app, when I opened it, had my verse, 2 Corinthians 12:9, on the homepage. Tuesday was a long, rough day. Then Tuesday evening, I got in the car to come home and it started raining. Wednesday morning, I woke at 4 a.m. and looked at the weather. It was 28 degrees outside of my dad's house. It had rained. What I knew as the whole night. I had to go into work. There was no call in ice. There wouldn't be a delay. Wednesday was one of the main reasons I was in Texas last week, and my job depended on me being there by 7 a.m. I took my medicine per usual. I had given it plenty of time to kick in, but stress is more powerful than my medicine, and it's more powerful than any surgery. I attempted to wake Stephen up and asked him to pray for me, and before I turned to walk away, he's snoring again. I began driving, and miraculously, there was no ice. It was 28 degrees, but the water had dried up. Then I was alerted that we were under an extreme wind advisory, and I felt those. I felt every tug that the wind gust would have on that rental. One of my many ailments is called dystonia. It's a part of my Parkinson's. And to think about what dystonia is, it's an incredible, annoying, and painful charley horse that usually never goes away. Now, because of this twisting of muscles in my neck and shoulder, I tend to have a death grip with my left hand, which is what gives me my ninja ability. I can hold on to nunchucks like nobody's business, usually outrivaling men. As I was driving, however, I realized that the tighter the grip it made my left hand shake. So medicine's not working well, and the dystonia is creating my hand to shake even worse. I quickly realized the looser my grip, the steadier the steering wheel actually became. The weaker I was, my God made that steering wheel steady. Wednesday's verse on the Bible app was Psalms 46:10. Be still and know that I am God. I will be exalted among the nations. I will be exalted in the earth. Now I know what you're thinking. God is speaking to you. Preach, sister. But this verse is one of those where I see God's humor, because to me, my sarcastic self wants to reply, I would be still, but you gave me Parkinson's. It's okay, you can laugh. I kept saying, Jesus, take the wheel. But Stephen always says I have chronic lyricosis, which is where you either don't know the words or you know the wrong words to any song. And so since I didn't know the rest of the words other than Jesus, take the wheel, he gave me a new song. On the radio, Shane and Shane, they have a song called You've Already Won. I am fighting a battle. You've already won. No matter what comes my way, I will overcome. Don't know what you're doing, but I know what you've done. I'm fighting a battle. You've already won. My grip, relax. My reliance on myself was released. And God gripped me with the fact that He's already won my battles of the day. Wednesday still took everything out of me. I came home and literally collapsed in Stephen's arms. In fact, while everything turned out okay, I'm still left with a ton of uncertainty. As a mom, a woman, and a huge striver, I want to come in here and show you a bunch of pictures of how strong I am. I have video of me pulling a Jeep. I have video of me swinging on rafters. But I'm weaker than the least of each of you in so many ways. Thursday, I tried to rest because Friday came early. I woke up at 2 a.m. to drive to the airport and fly home. I needed to take care of my daughter, who, as soon as I left, she got sick. I needed to hug on my fur babies, of which I'm convinced, agape love, which is God's love. I missed our other 2 kids. I missed our bed, our church family, and I missed being thankful, grateful, and blessed. And by Friday, the verse of the day was Philippians 4:7. And the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus. Ladies, we are strong. I know there is power in numbers, and there are superpowers each one of us possess, making us the gorgeous, unique women of God He has created us to be. But trust me, if you are ever or have been ever a caregiver of your family, you are single-handedly one bad mother. See what I did there? I think I gave Stephen a heart attack, just saying. But instead of us flaunting our strengths, I think I'm going to start boasting about all my weaknesses. In 2 Corinthians 12:10, it continues, "For the sake of Christ, then I am content with weaknesses, insults, hardships, persecutions, and calamities. For when I am weak, then I am strong." In order for Christ's strength to rest upon us, we really need to get comfortable with our weaknesses.